So the point of this and our idea behind this, as Tucker shared in our post yesterday, is we want to help people not just survive and just get through this time of self-isolation, this time of uncertainty with COVID-19 spreading. We want to help people thrive. And we want to talk about what it means to thrive as believers during this time and how we can really be salt and light and how we can reach out to those around us. So we're going to do several different topics in the weeks going forward, but this week we're focusing on mission. So our broad question is, how can I live on mission in the midst of social distancing? What does that look like for us? In the midst of social distancing, how can we do that well? How can we do that in a way that honors God and glorifies Him, and still, again, keeps with Scripture and stays on our mission to share truth, to share the gospel, to be an encouragement to others? So we kind of want to break that down with several questions, and we're just going to converse, throw some ideas out. Rena, please feel free to join in. If you're watching this later, please feel free to join in the comments, and we can interact with you there as well. This will be posted on Facebook later. But our first question: how can Christians stand out amongst the noise around us? Or another way to think about that is, how are we to be holy? How can we be distinctly salt and light in a time like this? What do you guys think?
This was one of my big frustrations when I was in a church. Actually, it was at Crescent, and as a layperson, not even feeling called to the ministry, I felt this constant pressure to evangelize in a Baptist church. It didn't matter which one I was in. It was this pressure that Baptists were under. And I remembered as a layperson thinking, I'll be glad to do that. Just show me how. I don't know how. They expected you to know how. They expected you to just instinctively know how to share the gospel. And I guess I didn't. I felt really unprepared. And when I went to seminary and I took my first evangelism class, I was like, oh, that's what they mean by that. So I think it's good we're talking about this, because I think the average person, at least that's the way I was like, I'm told I'm supposed to reach out, but nobody ever tells me how. Nobody ever explains what it looks like. So I think this is good, because the how-tos, you can't really picture it till you see, then it clicks.
Absolutely. And I think, too, you mentioned that, Mike, the importance of knowing and the importance of being equipped. Depending on what statistic you look at, somewhere around 10%, some would say that's high, some would say that's a little bit low, but somewhere around 10% of believers actually share their faith or have shared their faith before. But the interesting thing that I'm seeing with students is they're mentioning to me, even this past week as we've been doing our meetings on Zoom, how to them this is so much easier for them to reach out to their friends during this time. Hey, get on Zoom.
That's
we can connect online. And so I think that's why this conversation is important. Is how can we be different during this time? As you were saying, I think the opportunity is there. We just need to be willing to take it.
Yeah, learn how do we run with this ball that we've been given?
Exactly.
I think all of this presents unique opportunities. Like I know.
Can we bag them?
Mike, you
froze
feel
up.
like there's a pressure. I think, there?
Yeah, you keep stuttering for some reason. Something's up with your speed.
Oh, it's not me stuttering. Let me just say that. I blame the internet. But so you said that there's this pressure to evangelize, and I think a lot of people, that's in the back of their minds, but as they go about their day, it's kind of like this, I know I should do it, but they either make excuses or they put it off or do something here. And now we're in this unique place where we really aren't in situations to evangelize.
That's
so I
right.
think a lot of people are going to have to start asking this question. All right, the excuses I usually made to not do it, I can't really make those excuses anymore now that it actually requires a level of intentionality in order to be on mission. So how am I going to do that?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people kind of say, oh, I'm living on mission. I'm just doing it in my own way, in my own time, and, planting these seeds here and there. And, but we really don't have those options anymore because we're not around those people. So it's kind of like, all right, the game changed, and how do we adjust?
And that first question then about being holy and being distinct, how do we stand out, really does take intentionality. If you're not brushing up against somebody in Walmart, helping them with their cart or whatever, it's online. And how do you intentionally show grace? How do you intentionally show care, that compassion thing? how do you do that online? How are you generous online? That's a huge question.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in my case, I have been challenged because there's just so many people, so many of my friends who are in the nursing field and in the medical field. So I think what has been helpful for me as well as for others is really to be the peace in the middle of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that you even your posts are not like all about panic. It's not about anxiety. They're not anxiety ridden. It's all pointing to Jesus.
Mm.
um yeah, and in fact you can use like even the stories of the Bible. Like I have a post lately which showed the boat and the in the midst of the storm, and just short stories about like he is the peace in the midst of the storm
Yeah.
and all that. And then I think people will actually see that why are these people not anxiety laden like others.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where
absolutely.
does the peace and hope come from? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's good stuff.
yeah, so we hope that we actually project that, and we do have that. I mean, if we own that and we really believe that, it'll show. I mean, we can't just make it up. But if we really do have that peace, I think it will show in our words, even in our posts, and in what our belief really is, because our faith stands on the one who can answer all of these things.
Absolutely.
That's a great word, Arena. I think it's so easy for us, maybe not us, hopefully not us here and even us watching, but in general for people on social media to be negative.
Yeah.
Right? To look at the negative and to want to share the negative and blast about negative things going on. And for us just to be that calm, just to be that peace, that encouragement, I think can go a long way. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
That
That is
great
true.
stuff.
Just being prayerful is huge.
Yeah.
Instead of panicked. There's power in that you're pointing to something. They're not quite sure what it is yet, but hey, we're being prayerful.
Yeah, so you guys did a great job of answering. Let's move on to this next one, because again, our reality is different now. It's a new normal, right? We've said as a church, and many have said this, our methods are rapidly changing, but our message is not changing, right? We still want to champion the gospel. And so for us, what does grace and what does generosity look like at a time like this? Whether it's grace and generosity online, or whether it's loving our neighbors, but still honoring the social distancing guidelines and still making sure we're being safe in that way. What does that look like? What are some ideas you guys have on that?
Yeah. So naively, I break down evangelism into two categories. There's two components to it for me. So I believe it's show and tell, or grace and truth. It's both. That you have to show people you're different, that holiness, that graciousness, that kindness. So there's the grace factor, the giving factor, that generosity factor to show that you're different. But then there's the tell part, which is actually sharing the gospel. The truth has to be imparted. You need both pieces, the show and the tell, grace and truth. We need both. And so that first piece, grace, is huge. How do you show grace? How are you generous online? You can't. Can you take cookies to your neighbor anymore? Or what? I guess you could mow their lawn in this kind of time period. But what does it look like online to be generous? That's a good question.
And I think it's calling us to be creative, right? And really think through how can we think outside the box to reach people? Because you're right, taking cookies would be a great thing, but is that the safest thing to do right now? Would your neighbor even want the cookies?
Yeah, you could. I'll give you free babysitting for you while you go out on date night. Well, that's not happening.
Right. Exactly.
There is actually a neighborhood app that I don't know if you guys belong to, like the next door neighbor. Is that the next door neighbor or something? It's a neighborhood app.
Yep.
And all everyone shares what their needs are, even the older people, lost dogs, lost cats, whatever. So it is a good for us who are believers, it is going to be a good source of whom we can help, and the talents or the gifts, the resources that we have, and then match it up with these people who need stuff. So in that app, I mean, you hear people say, oh, I can't go out because like I'm 85 years old and I'm homebound, so can somebody help me or something like that. So I mean, if you belong to that community, you could probably offer to buy groceries or things like those.
That's what we've done at the church. We've reached out to our elderly, our church, to say, hey, we're here for you. If you need something, if you need groceries, we want to be a blessing to you in that way. That's a very practical, and I think a very good way for us to reach out during this time. Sorry, Tucker, you want to?
No, I saw a Facebook post yesterday where somebody had given their neighbor, so not somebody they went to church with, but somebody they knew, somebody who's elderly, high risk. They gave them 3 pieces of paper. They gave them a green sheet of paper, a yellow sheet of paper, and a red sheet of paper. And with the idea to like stick these pieces of paper in your window. Green means you're okay, you don't need anything, you're healthy. Yellow means I need food, I need
supplies.
I'm getting low on toilet paper. Like it's not an emergency yet, but like I'm and then red sheet of paper for like send help now kind of thing. But even stuff like that.
SOS.
Like how because not everybody has like social media. Not everybody is as tech savvy as some people, especially some of the people who are at higher risk. So it's like, how can we love and care for some of these people when it's not as easy? A lot of people is like, oh, like, all right, I can't see people in person. Let's just like gravitate towards doing everything online now. And for some people, that's not an option. So it's just kind of like, we still need to care for the people who don't really know that curve. So how can we do that?
That's true. I noticed in our neighborhood, people were putting bears in windows to keep kids interested on walks. It's from a book.
We're going on a bear hunt. Kids.
Going on a bear hunt. And that's just a simple thing. I've been toying with that in my head. And I'm thinking, I don't have any bears, by the way. I've asked and inquired in the house, and we have a monkey and we have a moose. And so how do you do that as a Christian? So I'm thinking, hey, maybe put a moose upside down in the window or in this corner and put the monkey and just go crazy and just try to show grace. It's just, hey, we're getting extravagant. We're getting it's just love. It's a form of generosity to make people's lives a little bit brighter, a little bit better.
I think that's a great point, Mike. I think a lot of times whether it's quote unquote normal times or now, we overthink the gospel so much. We overthink reaching out so much. Right, so just something simple as putting 2 stuffed animals in your window, just to brighten up a kid's day, right? To give a family an opportunity to laugh a little bit, I think is a way to share grace in that way. I think of my friend Chris Swan, who's a pastor in Georgia. This week, their county is on spring break, and the school system has been feeding children every day, but during spring break, they're not going to. And so he's mobilizing his church to set up a drop-off. Drop off, pick up, very little contact with other people. But just to give them a chance for families who are in need to come in a safe environment to get some food and get some resources, for that week they're not going to have those. And so as we go, he said, hey, don't make a special trip to the store, but as you go to the store for your family, grab some extra things and drop it off for us so that we can be a blessing to the community.
And we actually did that, right, Pastor Mike? In fact, I have a story about that. The goods that we had, so I think there was a family who dropped off goods at the office, and
Awesome.
Nathan and Lance actually picked it up and brought it to the food bank. And right as Lance came in with because there was a big pile of toilet paper that he brought in, as soon as he came in there, like, the lady at the food bank said, where did you get that toilet paper? I've been trying to look for that for like weeks. And, and I mean, just toilet, that simple thing, it's toilet paper, but at that particular time, the lady at the food bank was looking for it and she needed it, and the Lord supplied it through
I am
our
sure
call
they're
at LifeSpring.
desperate for toilet paper still.
Praise God.
Actually, that's something we could do. That's something we could say, hey, everybody, next time you see toilet paper, buy an extra one if they'll let you. Yeah.
But that's a great way for us to think intentionally and to think missionally when we're going out. Okay, they're not gonna let us hoard it, but if they let me get 2, bags, I'll get one for my family and one for somebody else. I think that's a wise thing to do.
So another church was talking about taking the checks. I guess they're not going to be checks, so they're going to directly deposit your relief funds in your bank account, that special aid money that the government's going to give us. And one church was trying to encourage their people, if you don't need it, if you're not in one of these places that, one of these jobs, careers that is impacted negatively by this, and you really don't need the $1,200 you're getting, give it to somebody who does.
Awesome.
What an incredible statement that would be of generosity and grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All great examples of that. And we talk about social distancing, and Tucker mentioned not everybody is online, or everybody is, comfortable interacting online. But the reality is, the longer we go, the more we need to leverage social media, right, for the gospel, leverage social media to be on mission. And so as we kind of transition to that subject, what do you guys think? How can we leverage social media as a medium for mission? How can we do that? What do you guys think?
I feel like I am learning Facebook all over again. I feel like I'm being forced into it, and I'm asking you guys, hey, how do I do this? How do I share that kind of thing? And it's like, I feel like I'm totally out of my element, and I feel like it's a strange thing. So I'm assuming there's a lot of us in that boat. But yet it's one of those huge tools God has given us right now for reaching out, and we got to figure it out. It's huge.
Yeah, I think so many people are online now. I was reading an article about the spikes in activity, just how much it's gone up, right? Facebook was having an issue a few weeks ago when everything was kind of turning, and more churches were going to live streaming, with services because of just bandwidth issues. And so more and more people are on, and more people are looking, they're scrolling, they're checking things out. And so going back to what Rena said really at the beginning, being positive, sharing some positive content, sharing some things that are going to encourage people and point them toward Christ, push them toward Christ. And we know throughout history that in times like these, people are drawn to Jesus. They're drawn to the gospel because of what this makes them think and the things they go through. I think one simple thing we could talk about on social media, especially Facebook, because it seems like that's a wide swath of people, swath of age ranges on Facebook. The power of the share. Who wants to talk a little bit about the power of the share, just how powerful that can be?
I know, like looking at so you take the LifeSpring Church Facebook page, for instance, we currently have 122 followers on our Facebook page. So every time we post something, our reach is only 122 people. But if somebody were then to take that and share it, it then has the potential to reach every single person that person is friends with. So if I'm friends with 1,000 people and I were to share a post, there's the possibility that now another 1,000 people could possibly see whatever that post is. So especially if it's something that's encouraging, if they're good resources, something like that, using that share button just has the opportunity to reach exponentially more people than we have to reach on our own accord.
Yeah, I experimented with this just yesterday, because Jonathan's been killing it with his Psalms. He's getting all of these views, and there's a competition thing in me that says, I can't let that happen. So it motivated me to see just this. And so I shared my one post. That's it. We've done a few, but I finally shared one myself because, again, I'm learning Facebook all over again. And I shared it, and the number of views went way up, almost double of what it would normally have been, because 3 other people that I shared it with, they shared it. There's power in that share button, and I think we take it for granted. We don't capitalize on it like we should.
Yeah, I agree. Mike is not joking when he says he's learning Facebook all over again. I've been here for 8 months, and he just accepted my friend request.
That's true.
I saw that. I already confirmed you.
It's sad but true.
But yeah, that share is so powerful. We were joking about it in staff meeting. It's not that everybody likes my devotions better than anybody else's, but it's just more people are seeing it, and it's they're being open to that content, and they have a chance to look at it. And it's not just LifeSpring stuff. We're doing things, but if you anything you see online that can be an encouragement, whether it's from another church or organization or whatever the case may be, just to be intentional about getting that out there, because when you do share it, it has an opportunity to reach people. I had last week, one of the Psalms I shared, a lady shared, I haven't talked to her in probably 15 years. We're still friends on Facebook, right? But she shared that post because it spoke to her and it was a blessing to her. And so you never know what something that small, how it might impact somebody.
Especially like when we were talking about, there are so many people who are dealing with fear, with anxiety, with uncertainty. And, we have the answer to fear and anxiety. We recognize and say, all right, I have everything I need in Jesus. I don't need to fear. I don't need to be anxious. So especially when they are those resources that really speak that gospel truth. They have, I don't know how many friends I have on Facebook that aren't Christians, but if I share something that speaks to them in a certain way, that makes them think differently, like what goes back to the first question, salt and light. Like, yeah. It's setting ourselves apart. It's, making people realize, that's a very interesting perspective that person has on this really intense situation right now. And who knows?
So along with that, what about quality, the power of quality, right? Because now everybody has been pushed online, right? Every organization, every church, whatever, we're all online trying to figure this thing out, right? This is my fourth Zoom quote unquote meeting today, right? We're all being pushed online and pushed in different directions. And so where does quality play in that? Let's talk about that. Not just necessarily how it looks, but the content you're pointing out. So I'll share an example and I'll just leave it there and let you guys discuss. But I saw earlier today, a guy put out something on YouTube that was extremely heretical, extremely anti-gospel. And it was basically saying that Paul is someone we need to listen to more than Jesus himself. And so it can be dangerous, right? If we're not putting out quality things that are leading people to Jesus and honoring the scripture. So how does that play out? How do we see that play out on a day-to-day basis in those things?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I noticed that the quality factor really hit me when Jeremy started doing our videos.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's
what a godsend he is. So anyway, he came and he videotaped me just doing a quick talk about fasting so we could pray for the new year. And there's what I would have done on the phone, and there was what Jeremy did. And the difference, it just says something, that quality, it takes it up a notch. It helps you jump above the noise. It helps you get views. It helps you, it's a form of generosity. It's grace. I'm going to do this really well. I'm going to do this as unto the Lord. I'm going to do this excellently. To me, it just gets noticed, and it makes it more worth sharing. Mm-hmm. So I think quality is huge.
I actually wanted to share about that quality, but the quality that I actually wanted to share about is the quality of the relationships that we actually, foster.
Yeah,
I think we want reach, but we also want depth.
Yeah.
I mean, for it, social media is good, but even just texting our small group members, just wanting to know like how they are on a daily basis is actually beneficial for me, and even I think for the others in the small group. So I think it's both like, you want to reach out, but you also want to reach in.
Absolutely.
And so
that's a great point. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. I think back to, we have small groups are still continuing on Zoom, and I think back to that first week where things were starting to shut down, and we were not having meeting for a small group. It had been a couple of days since Tessa and I had really had a conversation with someone besides a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so we were kind of longing for that. And just to do a Zoom small group like this, to be able to connect with people in that way. Hey, how are you doing? How can I pray for you? What's going on in your life? Is so beneficial. So absolutely, we want to make sure those relationships have a quality and depth, and we don't want to lose that during this time.
They will know we are Christians by our love.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're coming up on 30 minutes. So we said we're trying to keep it 30 minutes if at all possible. We're getting close to that time now. So we got 2 questions left. Let's run through that. And of course, we're not going to stop the conversation if it continues, but just want to be mindful of that. So with all this being said, talking about being salt and light, being intentional, sharing grace and truth, leveraging social media. With all that being said, how can we effectively and appropriately share the gospel online, right? Because traditionally, that's a face-to-face conversation. If I'm talking to Tucker, who's not a believer, hey, Tucker, let's grab some coffee next week. I'd love to hang out and just get to know your story a little bit better. Let's go get lunch, or whatever the case may be. So that's changed now. Right? We can't do that at this point. It's the restaurants aren't letting us come and sit down and have a meal and different things of that nature. So how do we leverage online, whether it's Zoom, whether it's FaceTime, whether it's social media? How do we leverage those things to share the gospel intentionally and effectively? What do you guys think?
One of my first thoughts is being really intentional with the relationships that we already have. So obviously we're not in a place right now where we're necessarily going to be able to meet new people, meet somebody who isn't a Christian who we can then try to, generate conversation with, grab that coffee, have more conversations. So who is it that we know that we can reach out to and be like, hey, like, haven't, how are you doing? Haven't talked to you in a while, but who can we reach back out to? Even just to say, like, thinking people who might be in more of a, because for some people that might seem kind of strange, like, oh, you haven't texted me in a year. Why am I hearing from you now? But even like, if I know somebody who's a nurse, or if I know somebody who works at a grocery store, like somebody who's on the front lines, like just reaching out to them and saying, hey, like, just want to let you know I'm praying for you. Please let me know how, like, is there anything specific I can be praying? And especially if that's not a Christian, then I think that just kind of opens the door to begin conversations.
That's a good idea.
I mean, we saw that in the office before everything went down, right, Mike? We were in there just kind of hanging out, and Miles walked in, and he had some questions. What does this mean? What's going on? How do you guys deal with this? And so we know people are dealing with those things, but now we have to be really, really intentional about how we reach out. So I think what you said, Tucker, the relationships we already have, not neglecting those, not forgetting about those, and really trying to keep that connection strong.
That's a really good point, I think, because we tend to think of evangelism as this new thing,
right?
But it's a process. It takes time. It's a relationship potentially for years until it really bears fruit, and it comes to an event and they pray to receive Christ. But we need to be constantly building that relationship. Good point.
Brian, what do you think, Brian? Give me some thoughts. What you got? What have you seen that's been effective, or what do you think will be effective?
The interesting part of the last 2 weeks has really been that soon I moved into a different neighborhood about a year and a half ago. It was very difficult to meet people just because my neighborhood is about 26 miles from the church. I found myself arriving at nighttime or at dark. But the last 2 weeks, we've met almost everyone in our new neighborhood. There's maybe 50 to 55 units, simply because people are outside, honestly. And so you're standing far apart, but you're saying hello. I mean, that's just the way it's been. And so we've met Elaine, we've met Jasmine, we've met Jane, there's just people that we have seen around. Like we've seen them go to the mailbox. We have a kind of a mutual mailbox area, and yet you don't meet them. And then all of a sudden, in the last 2 weeks, like you're standing there and they want to talk to you. And it's not, hey, in and out quick. It's more of a, hey, we haven't talked to anyone all day. Will you stand over there? Let's talk.
Absolutely.
Yesterday, Sue and I finished a long walk at one of the parks near our home, and we ran into a friend that we had worshiped with for about 16 years. And you could just tell this lady just needed somebody to stand there and look at her as if she was a real person. Again, she was over there. We were over here. There was plenty of distance. And just stand there. She talked 25 minutes.
Wow.
And And she goes, hey, when this is all over, is there any way we could get together?
Wow.
So we said, hey, July, you put it on yours. Let's meet right here at this park. We'll take a long walk together, whatever that takes us to. So
Right.
I found relationally the last 2 weeks has been far
You're right.
more rewarding, really, than the last
There's
year.
more openness. You're right. There is a more openness for relationship. I've noticed just people walking the neighborhood a lot more and seem to.
My final story would be, I found the phone. I've never really liked the telephone. My daughters can kind of tell you that. I'm not very good at it. But all of a sudden, my phone is ringing, and honestly, it never rings except for someone in need, right? Someone needs something, my phone rings. But all of a sudden now, I'm getting calls from just good friends who aren't as busy in the daytime. And they're just reaching out and saying, hey, you got 5 minutes? I'm like, hey, dude, I got 30. Like, let's go ahead and talk. So I found that it's a lot more relational time in the last 2 weeks. And specifically, if you just take the moment to stand there, most people want to have a couple minutes that they're actually talking to someone.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've seen it in our neighborhood, 2 people out walking about much more. We went out last night as a family for a walk a little bit later than we would have liked to. And there were still probably 3 or 4 families we passed that were just walking, just out, enjoying the night. And so I think we're enjoying the fresh air. So leveraging that time is intentional. Because I think it's easy for us to kind of get in this mode. We're at home. It's a different thing. We're focused on this stuff instead of, okay, yeah, things are different. Things have changed, but I still need to be intentional with this new normal and thinking through how to do that. That's a great point.
The final thing, honestly, Sue and I walk at 2 different parks. That's basically where we go if we're not walking in our neighborhood. And the amazing part was we haven't been able to find parking spots.
Wow.
Really all day. Like I've gone by them, coming and going, and have look in, and the parks are full. So people are in parks again with that distancing. I think it's a great opportunity for the church to think about.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
We have these discussions.
That is, that's huge. I mean, my mind's going 100 miles an hour in these ways. We could be a blessing to people like that, whether it's leaving water or whatever the case may be. There's 100 more things you could do from that. But great points, great conversation. So as we kind of bring it to a close and think about what we talked about today, again, the large question being, how can we live on mission in the midst of this new normal, the social distancing world that we live in? So we've talked about several things. What are some resources that you guys would recommend for us to look at, to consider, for the people who are going to watch this, to consider using in their daily life that can kind of help them in that process?
I'm actually holding a book. I just took it from Nathan's resources. It's called Missional Renaissance.
That's a great book, Reggie McNeil.
It's so helpful. Very simple. I mean, it's very well written.
Awesome.
So, Missional Renaissance by Reggie McNeil.
Yeah, and Amazon's still rolling, so you can order those.
You might not get it for a month now.
Yes.
Yeah, 2-day shipping gone, but you'll still get it. It'll come.
2-day shipping isn't a thing anymore, so.
A couple that I've seen that have been beneficial, I've used them in one-on-one evangelism, but I've also used them online. Some is viewthestory.com. It's a small little video that shares the gospel, and I think it's a good resource to get people thinking, get them talking, get conversation going. And the 3 circles, they also have some video content that you can use that's beneficial and helpful, just to leverage social media, to begin those gospel conversations and to see what comes of it.
I would recommend, and it's not a gospel resource, it's a relational resource. I would think about Cahoots, the game online, and also Jackbox games, because you can invite another family to join you online. Everybody with a cell phone can participate, a smartphone, and you get into just having fun at a distance. But then you have the conversations. Then it's the catalyst for the important conversations and what's really going on in your life. And
That's great.
it's the thing that you gather around, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Those are great resources. Those are really good. We spent probably an hour and a half on Sunday with our students playing Kahoot. They just want to spend some time and hang out and laugh. And so it's good to have that. I got parents who were reaching out, texting me things like, it's just so good to hear my kids laugh again. And so I think those relational pieces are really important, and it could be easy for us to forget those in this time.
And Jackpot Games is giving away some of the games free. There's one that I play with the young adults online in our small group. It's called Drawful, where you're drawing on your phone with your finger, and it's hilarious. It's just a lot of fun, and it just brings you together and you catch up. Hey, how's it going? How's class? Whatever. And it's free. So
free's always good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was, Mike, you mentioned the Skit guys, right? They're doing some reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the Skit guys are doing bedtime stories now, and they put them out at a regular basis. They're trying to help people through the coronavirus. And so they're doing Bible stories. They're retelling the Bible stories. It's only the Skit guys can do. They're hilarious. And it gives families something to do with their kids, but also it gives grandparents maybe something to do with their grandkids. And they'd hear some Bible stories, but it'd be fun. Fun tool, Skit guys.
Skit guys.
Bible projects, they have great resources as well, short videos that are really done really well with a lot of quality. So that's a good resource if you're looking for some ways to engage people online.
Jonathan, you think you can send us links to all of those resources so it's easier for us to get it?
Yeah, so our plan is to put those resources underneath this video when we post it on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure our email wizard, Tucker Reiner, would love to add those to you. Check those out. I did want to, any other resources before we end it for this week? Just want to give you guys a chance to share that. If not, we'll meet again next week. We're going to be talking about personal devotion. So how can we be intentional in our personal devotion to God? Maybe you find yourself where your time with God personally has kind of gotten off track a little bit in the business of life, and you want to refocus now. So we're going to share some ways and some encouragement in that, some ways to really focus in during this time and to make that a priority in your life. So that's next week. So if you can join us for that. Mike, do you want to close us in prayer, Mike?
Yeah, sure.
Before you do that, I realized we didn't introduce ourselves. And so in case people are watching this video, it'd probably be good for them to know who we are. So I'll start, and then we'll just let you guys go around. So my name is Jonathan. I am one of the pastors at LifeSpring, primarily over the student ministry. Just thankful to be able to serve in this way and connect with you guys online for sure.
I'm Brian Worley, executive pastor, and also help with some of the administrative part of Crescent Christian Academy.
I am Tucker Reiner. I work in community life, so small groups, connections, anything else that these guys don't want to do, I'll usually end up doing it sometimes.
He's also our resident builder, I guess you'd say. You could call it that, right?
Carpentry skills.
Carpenter, that's right. That's a much better word.
No doubt.
Okay, and I'm Rena. I do missions.
Absolutely.
whatever needed permission, I do it.
And I'm Mike Green, one of the pastors at LifeSpring as well. And let's pray. Lord, we do praise you. We just thank you for the change of pace we've had the last couple of weeks. I know my hecticness has slowed down, and I had more margin now. And I just thank you for that. And I thank you for everybody else that is experiencing maybe a little bit more margin, a little more breathing room. And Lord, I just ask that you'd use that you would use it in our communities so that we could have conversations and meet people, that you would give openness to the gospel, and that you would get us thinking about being more intentional about how to share our faith. Help us to be thinking about how to do this, how to present Christ in this whole new way, this new social distancing way. Give us creativity, and Lord, just give us this intentionality to be on mission in these times. Just bless us and be with us, work through us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. You guys have a great rest of the day. I will mention one more time, this is open to anybody. So if you see this later on Facebook and you want to join us next week, we'll have the link on our Facebook page. We would love to have a bunch of people in here just sharing different ways we can be intentional and, again, thrive during this time and not just to survive.